welcome to another story time brought to you by ABC Read and ABC Learn, in which we are here to help develop and nurture their love of reading in every child as well as every adult. I hope that you all are doing great, fantastic, superb, just awesome. All right. I know that I am. I'm feeling great. And I hope that you all have read or you're planning to read for at least 30 minutes, y'all. That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, guess what, y'all? I want to share with you guys a pretty cool story. Today was the first day of our Fall Back into Reading workshop that we had at the library. And we had one participant come. So, which was pretty cool because guess what? This is what happened, right? We had a great conversation. 73-year-old beautiful woman. I was just looking at her. I said, seriously, you please, 73? Oh my God, you couldn't pay me to believe that she was 73, okay? But I told her, and she's an African American woman. I said, look, I said, now you know black don't crack, right? Okay, so she just smiled and laughed, and I said, yeah, I said, because you definitely are beautiful. But anyway, so we were having a conversation because she walked by the room and she saw the display, she saw the books, she saw the nice display of the activity that I had set up for anybody to come and enjoy. And I was explaining to her that our organization, we focus on helping to develop and nurturing that love of reading in every child and adult. And she said, guess what? She said, I need a program like this. She said, I am not the person who is reading like I should. And she explained why. She said when she was a child, she had, found out that she was dyslexic. That's right. And so, and she was just saying how, of course, by her having having dyslexia, it kind of pretty much turned her off a little bit towards reading, because it was a struggle for her. And so I said, yeah, I said, this program is definitely great for you. I would love for you to come to the program next week. We can do some activities because she wasn't able to stay. But for us to have that conversation, it definitely, number one, it gave me more encouragement and a lot of more insight in terms of really understanding that not just children who are struggling with reading, you do have some adults out here as well who are struggling with reading. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. And that is another reason why we have this channel. Our stories are not just for the children, even though that, of course, that's our focus. Yeah, we focusing on the young people because we're trying to get them into reading, right? And in particular, our Black children. But yes, we want the adults to enjoy as well as learn as well. All right. So please remember to like and subscribe and share our videos. All right. All right, y'all. So there we go, reading family. And here we go with this awesome, awesome book. All right. And like I told you guys before, I wanted to leave you all with, the conversation that basically that Malcolm X, or we'll say Malcolm Little, for the sake of the book, he was just talking about in the story, well, not he, the author Ilyasah Shabazz. By the way, let me just say the title again. Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. Author Ilyasah Shabazz, illustrator A.G. Ford. And where I left off at was when the author was talking about how Louise Little, which is Malcolm X's mother, and how she was, just smack myself in the face with the book, right? She was into reading and books and education, and how she loved language and she loved words and just, talking about that. And so I just thought that was just so awesome. And I really love how his daughter Ilyasah talks about how the wonderful life and the foundation that Malcolm X received. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, especially when it comes to Malcolm X, and his other name is El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, may peace and blessings of God be upon him. A lot of times, the media tries to paint this picture that he was just this horrible man, and he hated white people, and and he was a racist himself and all of that. And I just said, wow. And I just, people try to, not really give him that reverence, or, just really be grateful for the different things that he imparted, the legacy, the wisdom, the knowledge that he left behind, but Nevertheless, his daughter said, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen to my dad. In fact, I'm not going to let that happen about my grandparents either. I'm going to talk about how the wonderful life and the family and the foundation that he received. All right. So this book is awesome. And yes, I'm advertising it. I hope that you all pick it up. All right. On sunny afternoons after school, when the air was still warm from the day and the chores were done, Malcolm loved to go fishing with his friend Big Boy. The two of them would stand over the stream like a pair of kings surveying their empire. They stood quietly, eagerly waiting for their fishing lines to move, for even just a hint of a ripple in the stillness of that glistening water. Sometimes they would stand there for hours, watching the stream as if nothing else mattered. They would scratch their heads and exchange looks that said, what could we possibly be doing wrong? Malcolm and Big Boy knew that if they wanted results, they were going to have to come up with a clever way of catching the fish. What were they not thinking of? Malcolm would scratch his head, squinting through the sunshine, and mull it over with Big Boy, both of them trying to come up with a better way to attract the fish. Then one day on the bridge, while their lines were still, Malcolm felt a rumble in his belly. The thought of the delicious supper that was waiting for him at home crept into his mind. Freshly baked biscuits, herb roasted chicken, a medley of steamed vegetables from the garden, and a homemade apple pie with churned vanilla ice cream. Malcolm imagined the aromas that would fill the little house at dusk. And then suddenly, it hit him. They needed better bait. Just like the aromas of dinner brought him and his siblings running to the table, Malcolm and Big Boy needed to lure the fish to come swimming to their lines. Their plastic earthworms obviously weren't cutting it. The next day, just before Malcolm cast his fishing rod into the stream, he pulled a handful of breadcrumbs from his pocket and hurled them into the water, where they landed like raindrops. Soon enough tiny bubbles appeared around the crumbs, and just like the little children would come rushing to the dinner table each night, the fish swam around to see what treasures Malcolm and Big Boy had to offer. From that day on, the boys caught big, beautiful fish. But more important, Malcolm learned that observation and effort could combine to create desired results. But the innocent world of magical gardens and carefree fishing would be short lived, and Malcolm's life would change forever. The young boy who until now had learned so much from his parents lost his father, Earl, to the brute force of racism and the narrow mindedness of Ku Klux Klan members and their brethren in the Black Legion. They disagreed with Earl and Louise's beliefs in equality, and apparently they also disagreed with Earl's right to live in a free society. In fact, they did not seem to think that he had a right to live at all. And it quickly became clear that the hate and fury that was behind the fire that burned the little house down many years ago was now back again. Only this time, the hate was so strong, it took Earl Little away from his family forever. Louise was left on her own to manage the household and the 6 acres of land and fend for her children. She sewed, crocheted, and rented out garden space on her land. The oldest 2 children, Wilfred and Hilda, set out to help their mother with raising the younger siblings and keeping the little family close and intact. It was the era of the Great Depression, and times got harder and harder. Soon, local officials began to assert that Louise was no longer fit to care for her children, and they threatened to take away the family land. The proud, loving mother on whom the children depended was now being taken away from them for reasons that no one dared to explain. When it rains, it pours. Malcolm once heard his mother say. Now he understood exactly what she meant. When Louise was taken away, the little children became wards of the state. All of the brothers and sisters were separated. Fortunately, Earl and Louise's good friends welcomed the children with open arms. Without his parents' guidance, Malcolm became disobedient and required the structure of reform school. But due to his academic adeptness, he was eventually enrolled in Mason Junior High School. When he arrived, he was the only student of color. Malcolm felt like a fish out of water. His brothers and sisters were gone. He missed the sound of his mother's voice. He longed for the passionate speeches his father gave about the teachings of Marcus Garvey. He yearned to hear the gifted orator inspire people to care about history, justice, and equal rights for all mankind. As the only African American student in his new school, Malcolm would have to blaze his own path toward discovering the remaining truths of his own identity. Malcolm tried to cheer himself up. He would conjure up the sweet and satisfying crunch of his mother's oatmeal cookies after a long day at school, and the frenetic clucking of the chickens the little family raised and sold, which always sounded like they were arguing. Now the memory of their squabbling provided music to his ears. He thought of how funny Big Boy looked with his pant legs rolled up, sweat pouring down his cheeks like his own private rain shower. Malcolm desperately missed the lively world of laughter and love that he had grown up in. He thought of his siblings, Wilfred, Hilda, Filbert, Reginald, Yvonne, Wesley, and his newest brother, Robert. The only other people in the world who must have felt exactly as he did. Malcolm wondered if they went to bed each night longing for the same thing that kept him awake, wanting to be together as a family again. Sad, lonely, and confused, the beautiful colors of life he once knew flattened into an uninspiring shade of muted gray. The grief was stifling, and nothing seemed to help. Malcolm was broken. On one overcast morning, Malcolm stood up from his desk chair and walked over to the open window, which was inviting a soft breeze into his room. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, and when he opened his eyes again, he saw something that he would never forget. Hanging delicately from a small twig on a giant evergreen tree was a cocoon, something Louise had shown him one day in the garden. You see, that peculiar little thing, Malcolm? Well, it's actually a casing spun of silk, a protective covering for the creature that lives inside until it's mature enough to fly out into the world. And just then, with one tiny wing at a time, a magnificent butterfly came half fluttering, half stumbling out. It was in flight for the very first time, set free from its home, alone, and finally face to face with the entire universe. When Malcolm saw the butterfly, that familiar symbol of freedom and transformation, he remembered who he was and where he came from. He remembered his own cocoon, the safe haven where lessons and values came like nourishment each day. With his eyes fixed, he followed the path of the butterfly flying away. At first it seemed uncertain, perhaps confused by its new life outside of the safe little shell. But in time it began to take flight, soaring through the world around it, bringing joy and color everywhere. The soaring butterfly gently opened Malcolm's heart to feel joy again. Standing there on his own 2 feet, he felt his roots reaching down into the earth, gripping the soil and providing the strength he needed to awaken the dormant parts of his identity. He would use the sharpness of his mind to overcome the heaviness of his heart. He would replace sadness with smarts and hardship with hard work at school. And just like the butterfly, Malcolm was ready to soar. But his resolve would soon be tested. One morning, the English teacher, Mr. Ostrowski, asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. Malcolm, who was sitting straight up in his chair, proudly announced that he wanted to be a lawyer. His grades were certainly high enough to set him on this path, but his teacher did not believe that African Americans should have high expectations for themselves or aspire to excel. He did not believe that people like Malcolm should dream, hope, plan, or succeed. But Malcolm was now old enough to understand that Mr. Ostrowski was terribly wrong. And just as nothing had ever stopped Earl, Malcolm learned how to rise up with that same bold determination that made his father a family hero. He had good ideas and good friends at school, and the can do attitude to make something of that promising combination. Whenever Malcolm would tell a story or a joke, the kids would all gather around, their eyes fixed on the charismatic boy who was clearly different from them, but someone whom they adored and respected just the same. The little boy who had lost so much was now ready to face the world. And then one day something extraordinary happened. Malcolm Little, the boy who was raised on the vision of freedom and justice, was elected class president by the students in his seventh grade class. When they looked at Malcolm, they no longer saw a mournful child lost in the world. Now they saw a smart, insightful, charming winner. They voted for a leader who believed in equality and who radiated optimism. Their open mindedness symbolized hope for generations to come. Malcolm may have lost his family, but he never lost the values for which the little family stood. And for the rest of his life, whenever doubt, sadness, fear, or pain would come creeping into his thoughts, he would firmly hold on to one constant force that always gave true meaning to his family life: love. The end. Wow. I hope that you all enjoyed that story, and I hope that you all were inspired by that story like I was. I mean, just beautifully written, in my opinion. I think Ilyasah Shabazz really just outdid herself with this book. I mean, I love all the adjectives that she used. I mean, it was just awesome. And, it really was such an awesome metaphors. It was just such an awesome book. And I love how she wanted to illustrate for the world about her father Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz as well. And I hope that you all got that from her book. She really wanted to show, how he was his foundation of love, self-reliance, hope, determination, all of those things. That's what made him into the man that all of us who know about him remember. He left a legacy, and his foundation was from his home, from his parents, from his upbringing. And so I'm glad again that she wrote that book, and I would highly recommend as well reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, because a lot of the different things that she talked about in this book is definitely in that book as well. All right, you guys. Well, that's it, and I will be reading to you again soon, and I hope that you all please like, subscribe, and share our videos, and remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day, y'all. Happy reading.